You just run it on a monthly basis.
How can I kind of get to the, I guess it's a constraint thing because you
Yeah.
need the warm audience.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So you need to make sure you have enough warm audience every single month. So you need to invest much more in ads than you're comfortable and have before, I guess. And then you need support delivering it. Let
me walk you through what you just did.
Yeah.
Right. So the first thing that you can do is have a saying which you can repeat to yourself, which is we repeat successful actions.
Mm-hmm.
So if something is successful, we repeat it. If it doesn't work, we try and figure out what was different about this time than last time. Why did it work last time and not this time? Because now we get closer to cause.
Mm-hmm.
And so to your point, you're like, well, I know that these challenges work, but if I were to do them again, I can't do them that frequently because. And if your because is correct, then you fix the because and then you try it again. And if you were correct in what the because was, then when you do the challenge again, it will work. And then you will have fixed it and you will have a way that you can do challenges consistently. If your because was not the correct reason or you didn't fix it and then you do the challenge, it won't work again. And it means because you got the wrong one or you didn't properly execute. And so fundamentally, like what we do when we buy a business is we say, how can we not, like, is one of the first questions I ask the founders. I say, how can we, like, why can't we do 10 times more of what we're currently doing? Just tell me why. And so if we're doing outbound, for example, it would be like, okay, how many guys we have doing outbound? We have 10 guys doing outbound. Okay, why can't we have 100 guys doing outbound? Just tell me, why not? And sometimes it's like, we just haven't really, thought about it. I'm like, okay, well, what would stop me from making a post to my audience, getting 100 outbound guys starting in 90 days? Well, I would need the infrastructure scale. Yeah, I got that. But if we did that, like, is there something else that would break? And if the answer is no, then cool, that's what we're going to do. If something else would break, then it's like, okay, so he said, well, we could actually get from 5 to 15 with our current infrastructure, but then at that point, we'd have to hire more support reps. Okay, so we're going to triple, and then we're going to start hiring for support. And so, because the bottleneck's always going to shift if the business is dynamic and growing. And so what we just walked through was what finding a constraint of a business is, which is, why can't I 10x the thing? If the answer is this, then this is the reason. And if you're right, you can 10x afterwards. And if you're wrong, then you got it wrong. You have to find what the actual reason is.
I love this. So, and it also kind of puts things in perspective, I hope, for the person listening of, it's not like we're doing a launch and then it failed and that means like we have to write off the business. It's like, oh no, we have to do this thing like multiple times and it's just mainly there to actually gather the data.
Yes. I mean, the thing, so a lot of entrepreneurs, and this probably just comes with time or experience or reps, but you have to be able to separate the business from who you are. So if a business isn't working, it doesn't mean that you aren't working as a human being. It just means that there's something that's not where it should be. And being able to systematically take piece by piece by piece and not get overly aggressive and say, we're going to test 6 things. Well, so you're not going to know. Yeah. Right. And if it does work, great. But now you have to test again to figure out what the variable was. And so I had dinner with a really close friend of mine who's a public CEO. And I was explaining one of the portfolio companies we have. We're just doing this thing every week, just every single week. So just think about like a webinar. We're doing a webinar every single week. And he's like, and it's like a full day thing, like whole deal. And he grows his publicly traded company by speaking at as many events as he possibly can and speaking 4 or 5 events a week or more. And he was like, they just don't get it. And I was like, yeah. He's like, they just don't get how many times we do things to get good. And I was like, yeah, I know. He's like, how can you think we can like explain that? Because he has reps that are in his business. And I was like, I don't know, because I think at some level you see someone do it and like people can hear this podcast, but Daniel's here and he sees, the work that we put in. And, we have our little workshops that we just started up. And he saw the guys doing their 10th, their 15th, their 20th run through on their presentations before they go live.
Yeah.
And so people think it's like, oh yeah, I just made some slides. I'm going to go up there. It's like, not in my company. Like you'll have those slides and then you're going to have an audience and we're going to say, do that again. Say it like this. Go like again. All right, stop. Go back to 5 slides. Do it like this again. We keep going through it over and over again. And once they get through that one session, it's like, great, we're going to do 20 more of these before you get on stage. And so it's that level. It's a tolerance thing. It's like, what's your bar of excellence? And if you look at Steve Jobs, or you look at Jeff Bezos, it's my fundamental belief that the person who's the highest person in the business should have the highest bar. So the moment there's somebody in this business who has a higher bar for standards for how this company should run, they should run it, not me.
Mm-hmm.
So the person with the high standards should always be at the top. And it's also a great way to think about for promotions within the business. If you have two people, like, who here has higher standards for what we do, even if they're more junior, and that's the person that should get promoted.
When do you know it's like, is it the things you select that need to have the high standard? Because I also see people who then pay attention to details that might not have a return at all.
Sure.
So how do you think about that, or how do you identify?
You have to chunk it up to what's the likelihood that this is going to get us more customers, or what is the likelihood this is going to make them worth more?
Mm-hmm.
Fundamentally, everything circles up to that. And so if you can't make a clear argument for how this detail is going to get us more customers or make them worth more, then it's probably not worth pursuing.